Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the Commander Clash podcast, where we talk all things Commander. And this week, we are answering everyone's favorite question: Is this Stax? Or more appropriately, we're gonna see if we need to clear with our play group that if this Stax piece is okay or not. We have a list of questionable cards of varying salt scores in EDH rec, and we're gonna go over and then discuss whether you should be playing these or not, and whether you need to get permission. The rule zero talk on these cards. Join with me is Krim, who believes no card is Stax. How are you doing?
Says a Stax.
How come I got introduced first this week? Hold on, I never get introduced.
You play all the Stax pieces, and you declare them not to be
intervention.
Stax pieces.
Yeah.
This has to be an intervention right now, live.
We have Seth, probably everyone's Saffron Olive, who asks Krim, is this a Stax piece every time you play?
Yeah.
I know. I'm reading through a list of cards that I see from Krim every other episode of Commander Clash, so this should be interesting.
Tomer, budget commander, who believes chaos is Stax.
It is Stax. It is. Spoiler alert for our discussion. But I definitely added some Stax cards that are chaos, and you should mention it. You jerks.
I'm the Codfather Richard, and I've actually changed my view on Stax over the years. It's kind of funny. I've done a complete 180 on it, so it'll be interesting to see what you guys think about Stax after all this time playing together. Before we get into today's episode is brought to you by our sponsors, Ultimate Guard, premium protection for your trading cards. So you can get all the gaming accessories we use on this channel from ultimateguard.com. And also Card Conduit, the easiest way to sell your Magic cards. You can skip all the typing, time, and work associated with buy listing. You can use a curated service where you send in as many cards as you want with buy list value of $1 or more, and you pay just a 5% service fee. And you can use their sorted service where you list and sort your cards and pay only 2%. You get a detailed report and fast payment once your order is processed. You can get 10% off by heading over to cardconduit.com/mtggoldfish. So thank you to our sponsors. And it's time for the Ultimate Guard comment of the week. Last week, we went over tips on cutting down your deck to 100 cards. Top comment, Orpheus 9. Yet again, I connect most with Tomer. As someone who primarily plays paper Magic, when I brew a new deck, I leave out all the cards that cost more than $5 unless they are absolutely core to the deck. I play the deck a few times, and if I like the deck, I will gradually upgrade those expensive cards. So we have some Tomer believers in the crowd.
Good taste. Good
Hey.
taste. Comment section. Thank you.
It sounds like a good way to build decks, especially like we have the pressure of building a new deck every week for Commander Clash, so we don't really have the ability to do that. But if you're building your personal decks, that seems like a pretty good technique, I think.
Y'all weird.
Yeah, I mean,
Y'all have
an
paper decks,
I agree.
but like I have thousands of decks. Every deck I make is my child, and at any moment we can assemble it back together, ready to go. So I'm not like, oh, I have 5 decks or I have 10 personal decks. Like I literally have 500 decks. So, that
Fair.
Teferi's Pro goes in 400 of them.
No.
So we just
boring.
swap it around, right?
So
we just swap
boring.
it around.
yeah.
Why even have multiple decks at that point if you're just going to run the same cards over and over again? That's my fault.
Wait, you advocated for playing, and if you liked your deck, you would upgrade into the Teferi's
That was to
Pro
ease
Tomer.
you into it. What I really do is just don't run all the same cards over and over again.
That was the trick of it. We got him.
Because then you could be like, oh my god, I actually don't need to run this card in every single deck. Wow. The shop.
Actually,
Well,
quite
you
the
don't
opposite.
need
You
anything in
don't
life
have it.
over, but it makes it easier.
Okay. I mean, not having the card in your deck, I have noticed the hole even more. God, I wish I had a Teferi's Pro right now. So, I don't know. It makes me want the card more, Tomer.
I mean, it's that strategy of like buy the cheapest thing possible, and then when you have a reason that cheap thing is not is not good enough for you, then you buy the more expensive like prosumer version or whatever.
Well,
So
yeah.
I actually really like that as life advice as well. Of course, and then we go buy like $2,000 PCs for no reason, but that's fine.
No. reason.
Let's get into today's podcast. Is it Stax? Is the Stax piece okay? Should we play it? We have a wide range of quote unquote stacks pieces. So we're gonna go over them, and I want you guys to tell me whether you consider it stacks or not, and whether, more importantly, you would try to clear it with your play group. Okay. First off, the Crim Special, Roiling Vortex. It's 1 in a red enchantment. At the beginning of each player's upkeep, it deals 1 damage to them. Whenever a player casts a spell, if no mana was spent to cast that spell, it deals 5 damage to them. And then you can pay a single red. Your opponents can't gain life this turn.
Okay.
Is it stacks
Okay.
if you hate on Soul Sisters?
If I there's no way this is a stacks piece, right? I would not clear this because it's very simple. This is 1 damage a turn. It hits everybody equally. This is
but
burn.
it's 5 damage if I cast my free spells, Crim. Have you thought about that?
If you
Don't
cast
we
like
all
free spells, you
despise
deserve
free
it.
spells? Right?
You're-
I
you're-
think
you're
Yeah.
staxing on my Joda Cascade deck. Come on.
Oh no, that's you're telling me I'm staxing out one of the most powerful commanders and the most powerful effects? Okay.
Very rude.
I think this card's fine. It is a little awkward that like you will sometimes run into some poor soul that's trying to play their like janky life gain deck and you just absolutely own them for no reason. But I don't think I would feel like I needed to clear this or consider it stacks. But I also don't understand why I would ever play it. Like I don't really see the point of this card in a commander deck. But
We just got one of the face commanders for Duskmourn previewed as Valgavoth, and it draws a card and gets
Yeah.
+1/+1 counter the first time an opponent loses life on their turn. I believe that's the wording for it. So it's like an instant staple in that one. But I agree. I wouldn't just jam this into like a random red deck and be like, gotcha. Cascade players potentially. You gotta build around the ping. The ping is very efficient at what it does, but you need to have a deck or a commander that cares about that upkeep ping.
yeah, if you're playing Torbrand
not
or something, I
stacks.
get it. Yeah.
Yeah. Torbrand, Axial, whatever that
Like
god
triple the
is.
damage.
Axenil?
Yeah,
Yeah.
like there's a bunch of synergies you could use with this. You wouldn't throw this in a random deck, but yeah, it's not really stacks because you have to keep the mana up too, right? Like you need to pay the red to stop the life gain. So if you're an ambitious Soul Sisters player, you can try to wait for the red player to tap out and then pop off. But yeah, so no stacks. No one cares
Yeah,
about this one,
This
right?
card's fine.
Okay.
Yes.
Rest
okay,
in
I just want
peace.
I just want us to timestamp that for when Seth asks
Oh, I am still
me-
gonna I'm still
we
gonna
used to
ask.
do that
I'm
to
still
annoy
gonna
you, Crim.
complain.
The true answer is whatever
It's
Crim is playing is stacks.
That is
okay?
true.
Island
Okay.
is a very, very good
Stack.
precursor to stacks pieces right here.
All right, rest in peace. 1 in a white enchantment. When it ETBs, exile all graveyards. If a card or token would be put into a graveyard from anywhere, exile it instead. Is this a stacks piece?
more of like, do we need to
Yes.
clear this? Right?
Mhm.
Because I don't think you need to disclose this is in the deck. Like, so what? I have graveyard hate. Yeah, okay. There is a lot of dies triggers. There's a lot of dies triggers, but hey, just don't let it die. or like
Or
legitimately
disenchant
what
it.
is
like it's just on the
what
on the
is
valve.
what is I mean, genuinely, I don't see why this would be considered stacks other than, okay, it shuts off dying in graveyards, but I feel like those operate on an unfair axis anyways.
I
mean-
I've heard people. Okay, so I always thought this card was like fine, like it's very effective as graveyard hate. That's basically all it does. It shuts off dice triggers and
Yeah.
graveyard hates, but it's also it's also symmetrical too. Like if you want to be using your graveyard, this gets rid of it. If you have death triggers, like you have to build your deck around utilizing this properly, and most decks can't even do that. Like most decks want to be using their graveyard and stuff. So I always thought this card was like incredibly fair, but I found out from people who are like graveyard players, like they get very mad at this card, like very upset at this card, and I was shocked. I was like, really? Like
Wait,
it's
were
incredibly fair.
I mean,
Yes.
you? Well, holds microphone to graveyard player's face. Do you like rest in peace?
Just remove
know.
it. I don't know. It's in a chair, just sitting on the battlefield. Just remove it.
I actually think this is stacks, and I actually can see why people would get mad about it. Like, it makes sense, right? It stays out. It's like the hardest form of graveyard hate. It's not like you're Tormod scripting or Soul Guide Lantern. You're just like nuking, Bajuka bogging, getting rid of the graveyard once, and then you can try to rebuild. This is just like your deck doesn't function if you're a hardcore graveyard deck for as long as it sticks out. So I don't know what I believe about the Rule 0 stuff. Like I would never put Rest in Peace in my deck to begin with, so I guess I can avoid the problem. But I don't know if I would like call it out. I just wouldn't play it because I think it's like, what's the point? Why play this card when you can, like, it's just a targeted Stax piece. That's all it does. Like, there's no synergy with your deck. There's no reason for you to play it. It's just like, hey, screw you if you're playing graveyard deck. So I don't really understand why I would play it.
I have
okay. So you're
I
arguing
ran
for
into my
me.
Zedru deck because you could donate to the graveyard player, and then you draw cards and you gain life as the graveyard player has to stare at it on their side of the battlefield, which is amazing.
The troll
Believe
value.
it or not,
I took it out.
donating it to the graveyard player is extra like sweaty percentages because you get around Assassin's Trophy
Yes,
and you get around a lot of the things that blow up opponents' things. Yo, tell me, you
I
may
can't
be
believe
joking,
Crim
but that
just
was
knows this off the top of his head.
doubly calculated. Not a. It's a troll for a reason. I'm sure. I did take it out
Genuinely,
though,
like-
because people complained. So I was like, you know what? I don't want people to be super salty at my deck, so I just took it out. So I agree, it's a stack.
So obviously, I think we all agree on power level that it's not like busted or anything. It's not like, oh my god, this ruins. Like it's just OP.
I mean, if you're a reanimator player, yeah, it ruins your day.
Sure.
Yes.
Good.
Sure.
If you're
If-
not, then
if-
it's okay, right?
I was playing a game with Josh Lee Kwai, and he had a commander that just pings things, and against my ninja deck, that's all 1/1s. Like then is that would be a Stax piece? Is what you're telling me? No, like
It kind of is, right? It's just not.
no.
So so a Stax piece stays on the battlefield, right? Versus a hate card. So like Seth said, like a sweeper, a Tormod script or something, it happens, you get like totally hosed, but then you continue your game. Whereas a Stax piece just stays there until you get rid of it. The only question is like how good of a Stax piece is it, right? Like if it's a rest in peace, it only hits on people that have like dying triggers and graveyard decks. But here's the thing, right? Like in a generic pod, maybe it only hits one deck, maybe it hits like a Corver deck, and in that case it sucks, right? But if you are the graveyard deck, this like turns you off completely, and it might as well be a stasis to you, right? Like you can't accomplish anything while this is on the battlefield. You need to remove it. Now, I brought out the hypergeometric calculator, okay?
Oh no.
Let's say you have like 5 answers to rest in peace in your deck, okay? And then in the first 5 turns, so looking at the top 12 cards, the percentage of seeing an answer is 48%. Right? So like Magic is a hard game. Your deck doesn't even do what it wants to do, like unopposed, right? But now you have a 50% chance of literally doing nothing because you cannot like muster up the answer. That's a hard Stax piece. Right. And then if you go to 10 answers in your deck, and like how you can get 10 answers, I don't know. It's only like 75%. Right. And if you're a mono black player, you have like what? The 2 mana
Feed the
removal, and then feed the swarm, and then you're running on boom pile now, right? now you're on like Oblivion Stone, right? Like that's what you got. So I don't think it's too crazy, but I can see why people get salty, right? Your deck barely functions, and then half the time someone slaps us down, you can't do anything about it because you just cannot draw your answers. Like, I could see that. So I consider it a Stax piece.
My rebuttal to that,
But do you think it's okay to play, right? Because the point of this is like, yeah, sure, we're gonna go with all of these are Stax adjacent, okay, or whatever. But is this something that you feel like you would actually have to let the pod know that you play? Hey, everybody, I play a really random narrow card. I hope you aren't a graveyard deck.
Well, it's like, do you have to announce that you run Farewell in a deck? Like, I'm playing an artifact deck, and you cast Farewell against me, I scoop up my board, basically.
But that's
right?
different. That goes away after you cast it.
Yeah, but
So
it
yeah,
goes
great
away,
for
but
you,
all my
right?
things are exiled forever, including most of my lands. So it's like...
Hey, that's a deck building issue.
That's also
But
LD.
I would argue the same thing with a graveyard deck, too. Okay, you have 5 answers in your deck, which I think is actually good for a rest in peace if you're a graveyard deck. Well, you should run a couple more tutors, run some more card draw, and you'll find it. It's not like it's turning off your lands. It's not turning off your mana or your card draw ability. It's turning off a big part of your strategy. But like, I think if your deck is like all in on your graveyard and it just dies to like a good graveyard hate piece, then I think that's a deck building issue, no? Just like my artifact deck. I have 51 artifacts. I scoop up
Can
the
I say that
the
about
farewell.
humility though, Tomer? If your deck just falls to humility, you deck build better, right? Why would you just play humility in Armageddon, right? Like at some point we're like, well, that's too much. And I agree with you with that. In a generic pod, no one cares. But if we were doing graveyard week, okay, we know everyone is bringing a graveyard deck. Would you not feel the need to clear a rest in peace? Right? Like now that this piece is like super effective, you would have to clear it, right? It's now on the level of stasis for everyone.
But then you're not a graveyard deck if you're running this card.
Yeah,
Oh,
if it's graveyard.
Just ignore the person breaking theme, but like the other 3 players.
I'm not very forgiving when it comes to cards that don't serve another purpose. Like, I can kind of see, like, my Notion Thief is a creature, or my Opposition Agent is a creature, but when it comes to Rest in Peace, it, like, does nothing to further your game plan, like, period. So for me, it's like one of the most egregious hate pieces, because that's all it is. Like, there's no way you can even argue that it's like doing something to support your deck. So I think I just don't play it, but I guess I would clear it if I was playing it.
All right.
I don't see a reason.
I see we're very contentious on Rest in Peace. That's supposed to be a softball. This is gonna get much worse here. Let's go Collector Ouphe. Green, 2 mana 2/2. Activated abilities of artifacts can't be activated. And I know Krim has actually run this on Clash before, so I know what he's gonna say.
Yeah, no, I don't think I need
like
to say
partial LD. If people are running mana rocks and stuff, you just slapped out a Collector Ouphe. Is this okay? Is this cool?
I'm just gonna ask this question real quick.
My porch res.
What is the most busted thing, like type of card in Commander? And if you just don't, yeah, well, okay, sure. If you think a 2/2, a vanilla 2/2 is busted, then that's a different issue. But like for the most part, yeah, okay, this shuts off all the absurd like Soul Ring into Signet turns. It also shuts off all of the annoying like artifact decks. So I think there's enough artifacts, and now with treasure production and things like that, okay, you could have a Smothering Tithe. Well, this is my answer to that, because I clearly may not have anything else. If I like, this card shuts off a lot of unfair things. So all I'm trying to do is just make you play fair Magic. So far, every card on here, by the way, is trying to make you play fair Magic.
It's like temporary, right? Like unlike Rest in Peace, like Rest in Peace takes everything with it until it's removed. But like you can keep playing your Soul Rings and Signets or whatever, and then remove the Collector Ouphe in the future, and then it unlocks all of your artifacts, right? Like you can get like 1,000,000 Smothering Tithe treasures and then remove Collector Ouphe. So it's a lot softer than a Rest in Peace. And also it's a creature, a 2/2 at that. So it dies a lot easier.
It's easier for Rakdos to deal with that, because Rakdos can deal with creatures, but enchantments are much harder.
Yeah, I think
does Rakdos even need its artifacts?
Yeah, I mean, it is a Stax piece, right? Like, I think, like, because of how it works, but I don't think it's an especially egregious one. I think it's more like a Vandal Blast or something, because of what Richard said, how it plays. Like, because you'll answer it eventually, all your stuff turns back on. So I think this one's fine. It's not a card I play, but I think and if you want to play it,
it's a stopgap. Like it's better.
So
in
we don't
CDH
clear this
where
one,
like,
right?
It's early.
No,
you
not
drop it down
especially.
early and stuff. Yeah.
And Krim, I think
would
is
not
right here that
close.
artifact decks are pretty busted. So I think there are cases where this is the good guy that's like stopping. You remember when I popped off with like KCI or whatever and just like had this huge turn and won the game? In cases like that, Collector Ouphe might actually be doing a service to the table.
Or what about
Why is
when
Rest in
Richard
Peace not
popped
doing
off
a service?
trying?
That the graveyard decks are insanely powerful too. Like what?
Yeah, no. Look, I agree with all the cards being insanely fair.
I think it's tamer than Rest.
Don't think about it too hard.
Yeah,
It's a
tamer.
creature.
Like,
I think being a
all
creature
colors can
changes
deal
it.
with creatures, right? We know that. Whereas not all colors can deal with enchantments very well. But okay, we're gonna get contentious here. I think this one will be a good one. Notion Thief.
Yeah.
Demir, 4 mana 3/1. Flash. If an opponent would draw a card except the first one they draw in each of their draw steps, instead that player skips that draw, and you draw a card. Is that
Okay,
a
so
Stax
I have a
piece?
Hate
question.
this card.
Is this card, are we lumping like Bowmaster and the brand new Razorkin Needlehead, things like that, into this category as well? like Sheoldred.
Not exactly.
punishment.
I don't know. Sure. Well, it depends. The other ones deal damage to you. This one just straight up stops your card draw.
Yeah.
Okay.
So we could discuss both, I guess. But I think they're slightly different.
I think that this card immediately shuts off long turns. It shuts off a lot of long turns because now at this point, everybody is upset. They're going to try to deal with you. They can't dirtle anymore. They can't just draw, right? This is able to shut down a serious amount of card draw, which is huge. I love that, right? Like, because this is my card draw.
It makes turns shorter because you got no cards in your hand to play Magic with. So, of course, the turns
true.
are going to go by quickly.
It kind of feels like, if I would define
yes.
Stax, it would be like inability to play the game of Magic in a broad sense. And usually that's like cutting off mana or cutting off cards.
Well, let me ask you this. You get to draw your first draw of the turn. It says it right there.
No,
So
I would not expect anybody to mention this card unless you ran it with wheels. I feel like Notion Thief is like super fine. Even Narset is super fine. But once you start enabling it with wheels, like Windfall Effect, everybody discards their cards, then draw like a brand new 7, like a Wheel of Fortune or whatever. When you're combining it with that, it's so backbreaking because like you could have full grip of cards in your hand, and then the Notion Thief player can make you discard your entire hand, and then the game must
ignore
continue.
the combo. What if you play fair Notion Thief?
I think it's fine. I wouldn't expect you to mention it in the group by itself, but when it's with wheels, I think that crosses a line.
Yeah, I would probably disclaim it with wheels. But otherwise, fair Notion Thief is fine.
I'm very fine with the damage ones, honestly. Like, I kind of like those much more because then at least you can draw into an answer to the Stax piece and then go back to playing Magic. I just hate Notion Thief. I'm not saying you can't play it or like you have to rule zero it or whatever. I do hate it though. It is like literally my most hated card in the entire format.
Seth hates Notion
So it's
Thief?
hard for me to say it's okay just because personally I hate this card so much.
The same Seth that I know hates Notion Thief.
Yeah, who would have thought?
I mean, I think it's one of the purest Stax pieces out there because I think Tomer hinted on this that he went a different direction, but like the fundamentals of Commander are card draw and mana, and everybody draws cards and everyone generates mana, right? Not everyone has like artifacts, not everyone has graveyards, but everybody draws cards, and because you Stax this, you're basically just slowing down the whole game. And I would probably argue that most decks don't function at their supposed power, when they're drawing one card a turn, right? So I think it slows down the game because everyone just like slowly plays the game at like half the speed until this thing gets removed. This has like some justification in that it's card draw for you, so like you're actually accelerating your own game. It's not symmetrical stacks, right? But I think this is super annoying. I played it before, and then Seth like immediately tried to kill me, and I figured this was a bad card, right? Because Phil was like arch enemy. Everyone was trying to kill Phil. I'm like, oh, let me just Notion Thief. So on one hand, I locked Tomer like completely out of the game. I'm like, well, that feels kind of crappy. I just like totally staxed him.
You did that like,
and then Seth was like, I'm just gonna murder you. I'm like, oh boy.
Yeah. Like Seth's hatred of it was actually the biggest boon for me because I remember you played it in response to stop me from doing anything with Flub on my turn.
Yeah.
And then Seth like saw red and I'm like, okay, like finally.
Yeah, and I put it in my deck as like a value card draw, right? I'm like, oh, I'm just gonna use it to draw some cards, right? But I'm like, I'm not gonna do that anymore. I'm just gonna play like a Painful Truth or something and call it a day. Like the Stax piece, like does not stacks anyone out of the game. Like the problem with partial stacks is like half a combo piece, right? People get scared. Like once you're locked down to one card a turn, and then you slap down a Rest in Peace or something, now they're really screwed, right? They can't draw multiple cards to get out of it. So people are always afraid of the layered stacks pieces. So, and this one has the added bonus of the wheel, right? So every time you play Noshi, you're like, hold on, guys, there's no wheel in here. And then Krim says that, but he has the wheel anyway, and we believe him.
I have a
YouTube
hot
comments
When
that
have I
called you
had
out
the
on that, Krim.
When did I have a wheel? Oh wait, well that's because I think I forgot because I had commit and memory in the same. Cause I was like, oh, this is just
I forgot, right?
I did because to me commit is the answer anything permanent, right? So
Krim knows to give rest in peace to the players to avoid Assassin's Trophy, but he cannot see commit to memory and Notion Thief. Okay.
I mean, look, I'm gonna tell you right now, I am inconsistent. Okay, I thought Brutal Cathar was Grasp of Fate, so like, let me tell you this, it does not do that.
I have a hot take though. I think Okish Boremaster is the one I'm least happy with in multiplayer. Because
Really?
the reason why is because unlike all of these, they punish the person who is drawing the cards. But I've been in many situations where where the person drawing the cards is actually not being punished. It's the person the person drawing cards is teaming up with the Bowmaster, and the Bowmaster gets to like machine gun down the entire board of all creatures, including me, who's like not drawing cards, because one person is drawing cards at the table. So I feel like the Bowmaster doesn't actually punish card draw. It does in 1v1. In 1v1, obviously, it triggers just off your opponent drawing cards. But in multiplayer, there's like so many bystanders that are casualties in it that kind of sucks. I don't know.
That is a good point. I've had that happen too, but I think in general I'm more okay with like taking damage than just not being able to draw cards.
I wish it was
Clash
both.
special.
You couldn't
Secret
draw
Rendezvous
and take
into
damage.
6 triggers.
But then you'll find a wrath to deal with it or something, hopefully.
Okay. Hushbringer. 1 and a white. So 2 mana, 1/2 flying lifelink. Creatures entering the battlefield or dying don't cause abilities to trigger. So creature ETB value hate. Stop
So-
all
Aristocrats
decks.
hate, Aristocrats hate.
Yeah.
Aristocrats, yeah.
The rest
So
in peace all over again.
I think this card's super fine. I think it's super fine. I think so. Yes, it is staxing, but I think when it comes to stacks pieces, cards that generally just like slightly hurt everyone, I'm more okay with than the cards that just like absolutely wreck one player. And I think this is one of those cards where like, yeah, I guess maybe you played against a Yarok deck or someone who's built around a Panharmonicon effect and it really gets them. But I think in general, there's just like a lot of dock sides and powerful ETBs in Commander, and having a card that like interacts with them and shuts them down, I think is probably a positive thing overall. And I'm saying this as someone who probably plays more Panharmonicons than anyone, so I get the worst of this card, but I still think this card's actually just fine.
Yeah, this card's absurdly
So fine.
fair. It's also kind of actually bad, but
It's funny because like literally every single one of these cards I don't have in any of my decks. But like this one is so fine. It's a creature, everybody can deal with it. I don't know, it's a 1/2.
Okay, well, that's because this card sucks. How about Elesh Norn, who Panharmonicons your side and then does the Hushbringer thing on the other side? Like, is that okay? Like, that card is popularly played,
Yeah.
right?
Yes. It's 5
Yes.
mana.
I mean, it is fine. I had a game at the last Command Fest or Magic Con I was at where I was playing my Yarok deck and someone played Elesh Norn and I did nothing the entire game, which it was kind of a bummer, but I think that's fair. And I probably, like, there was no wrath or anything, so like it could have been dealt with. So I think it's still fine, but I think it's also way stronger than Hushbringer.
Yeah, because it accelerates your board. Like the people who are running Elesh Norn are blink decks, like
Yeah.
so people are running it not for the stacks effect, they're running it for the fact that it's a Panharmonicon for you. And I think that's what the big difference is, really. But this is like super fine. Like if you're a Yarok deck, it sucks because you can't your ETB creatures. You usually have ETB like destroy a creature,
Your
right?
Ravenous
You have,
Chupacabra
Ravenous
or
Chupacabras
whatever.
and
Yeah,
stuff,
that's my
But-
removal.
I feel like if you're all in on the strategy, it's up to you to like add ways to answer the thing that will just shut down your deck, right? So this is just like this is why you run like a Beast Within. This is why you run like a Board Wipe or whatever, because you got to have outs to things that just beat your deck, right? And this this doesn't like obliterate your board or anything. It's just like you have to hold on to your ETBs until
You just can't
find
do
the
anything
answer.
fun. Yes, but your board does
But-
survive.
You just can't do anything. All right. Choke. 2 and a green. Enchantment. Islands do not untap during their controller's untap phases.
If
No.
you play
Is that
choke
okay?
as the resident blue player, you could play Boil as well. I do not care. Because these cards are so narrow that, like, in the few times you get me, you got me, right? Like, you got me. You did it. That's sick. But on top of that, how many types do you think are actually attached to my lands? Because unless, you're going full Tomer mana base and you have 36 islands, Boil and Choke aren't going to do that much to me. Right, because I'm actually playing like Drowned Catacombs, Flooded Strands to get sorry, not Flooded Strands, but Glacial, whatever, Fortress,
What if you're
things like
mono
that.
blue?
If you're mono blue, then you got me, right? Like, it's just that simple. I'm mono blue, and even then, we've had this discussion on numerous other podcasts that mono blue does not mean that you are just all islands. We have so many utility lands. So these cards, though, are like, you will get someone and it will be funny. It's still so narrow. I do not think that you need to disclaim you're playing Choke. I do not care personally if you play Choke.
So I
In a
think
casual pod?
you are. I think Crim's right that, like, it won't necessarily wreck you. But what if you add Back to the Basics or Blood Moon on top of that? You're talking about, I got my Drowned Catacombs. Like, if someone's playing both of those cards, there's not really any playing around it, right? And you don't know which one someone might be playing. So as far as I'm concerned, these are the worst cards we've talked about so far. Like, Notion Thief might be close, but I think these are the least acceptable and most you got to warn people about. Like, I don't think you can play these in a casual pod without letting people know. Blood
think
Moon,
Blood
Choke, Back to
Moon-
Basics, any of them.
I think the
I would
difference
say Blood Moon and Back to Basics probably I would disclaim. Like when I had my mono blue Merfolk deck, I was like, hey, everybody, this is a blue Merfolk deck. I have nothing to do. I have a bunch of little 2/2s, and I'm going to try to turn all your lands into islands. That's it. Like, that's the purpose of this deck. I would disclose
Hooray.
Blood Moon and Back to Basics. Choke, I think, is so bad. Like, you can play Choke. Please, play Choke.
It's so funny because, like, Back to Basics and Blood Moon are totally fine to me, but Choke would actually, like, if I'm mono blue, it really sucks. I guess it doesn't. You could still have outs to it because you could play lands, and those lands will enter the battlefield untapped. So eventually, you could, like, Psych Rift it or something, and then hope the counter hit on the way back down or something like that. But it feels bad. It feels real bad. I much rather play against, like, a Back to Basics or a Blood Moon than a Choke if I'm mono blue.
Oh, I mean, you should obviously Tomer is okay with Blood Moon and Back to Basics. His mana base is like 32 basics.
Yeah, this is really effective too. But I think these are the hard ones because, like, they are stacks, but they also deny you the ability to use your answer to them, right? Like, okay, there's a Blood Moon on the battlefield. Okay, just use your disenchant. But it's like, well, my disenchant cost is white, and I don't have access to white mana right now, so that's a little bit awkward. Yeah, I think disclosing these probably.
I mean, Choke is so bad because it's so narrow, yet so backbreaking, right? It's like you played a game of Commander, and then one person decides to just literally kill you the whole game, no matter what, and you're like, "Yo, bro, what's up?" Like, that's Choke, right? Like, this card does nothing against anyone, but for some reason, you managed to line up with me, the mono blue player, and now I'm choked out of the game, right? So
It's kind of funny. What do you
it's kind of bad, right? Like I don't know. What I don't know. Even if it was like the more generic one would be like Back to Basics, but that's still like kind of bad. Like these stacks pieces have an issue where, like, if they suck, no one cares. Like, if no one's playing islands, like, you played a Choke, funny, right? But if they're actually effective, it's literally the same as playing a Winter Orb or whatever, right? Or a Stasis or something, right? So that's the problem with these stacks pieces, right? So I don't like Choke, and especially since it's such a metagamey call. Like, would you like, how would feel like it if every week we're playing Choke because he likes to play Simic? There's a good probability he's playing Simic. There's going to be a lot of blue there. We'll just play Choke, right? It'll probably be quite effective, right? And that's kind of scummy, right? So I don't know. I don't really like these, like,
But you could
super hard
scum-lord me
hoses.
out too. That's a 2-for-1.
But I mean,
that requires you drawing lands. I don't need to do that.
Yeah, I play around it by never having lands.
I mean, I think
Alright.
you got to remember that the goal of Commander is for everyone to have fun, right? To have a good time. Like, if your goal is to win, then sure, like, play whatever. Like, whatever you can to make your opponent not do anything. But I feel like those cards are so egregious because even if I win with them, I don't end up feeling good about it. Like, oh, Phil didn't get to, like, do anything this game. Haha, gotcha. Like, I'm going to be Mythic soon. Like, what's the point? We're playing Commander. There's no, like, payoff for it.
If it can avoid the 15-minute turn, though, I'll do the choke all day. And also, I'd much
triple
rather
strip, mind you, but choke, I draw the line.
Well, I'd rather be choked than boiled, though. Like, honestly, like, tap. My islands are still on the battlefield. When I get rid of choke, then I can still play. But like, boil just destroys all the lands. It sucks.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Archon of Emeria. 2 and a white, 2/3. Flying. Each player can't cast more than one spell each turn. Non-basic lands your opponents control enter the battlefield tapped.
If you had asked me about this card like 6 months ago, I would have been like, oh, this card's fine, like whatever. But my God, did I get got by this card on Commander Clash like not that long ago. And it really like dominated the entire game. Like I had to do so many awkward things and like tutor up answers and play suboptimally just to get rid of Archon of Emeria. So then I could try to like play the game again. So I guess it's still fine, but it's definitely increased in my Stax rankings as to how brutal it is. The other problem I have with it is it's another one of those slow the game down cards, right? Like we want the games of Commander to end, kind of like games of Commander get really slow and awkward when people only get to draw one card each turn. If you can only do one thing each turn, it's just going to make the game take like twice as long. So unless you're doing something with this other than just like, haha, everyone can only play one spell a turn. Like if it's somehow actively supporting your game plan, I get it. But otherwise, it's like, what's the point of putting this in your deck? It's just like slows things down and it's super annoying.
My game plan with it is to make it so people that draw 40 cards can only play one of them.
So it's actually Notion Thief if you think about it.
Yeah,
Wait,
it's
Notion Thief.
backup Notion Thief when I'm not in
such
Dimir.
bad Notion Thief though. Like if you draw 40 cards, I'm gonna find my removal spell, I'm gonna kill it, and then I'm gonna proceed with the rest of my turn.
Yeah,
Oh,
I mean,
kind of
force
like
you to
bluff.
have it though, right? That's the
I
game
mean, that
plan.
made you skip an entire turn. Well,
Not if it's like a swords or whatever. I don't know.
Well, you have to
do the removal at the
draw
start of
it,
your turn. Yeah.
pass, and then kill it.
Yeah. Nah.
I'm with Seth. Krim ruined this card for me that one game. So because I looked at the stats, I looked at the game, right? Because so what actually happened in that game was it was probably one of the longest Clash games of the season, but like turns like 6 to 11 or something. It like lasted like that long, right? Everyone just did nothing and just spun their wheels, and we wasted an hour. And then Archon of Emeria finally got removed, and then we played the game again. And then like the game like went another like 4 turns and ended like it normally would. So all it did was just waste everyone's time. I guess you could build around this by like having a real curve, like going like 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 or something, right? But in general, Commander, you're trying to double spell and triple spell, and this just makes everyone play the same game, but at like a third the speed. So you can't complain about time equity and then slap down an Archon of Emeria or something, right? Like I don't know.
You have to disclose it though, because like I agree, it does slow down the game, and I don't run any of these cards. But like, would you expect somebody to feel like, hey, I'm running Archon of Emeria? Is that cool?
No, but I wouldn't want to play with your deck anymore, though.
Yes. Which I guess maybe means people should disclose it, because that's the whole point of the whole Rule Zero thing, right? Is you're trying to like have the experience you want or whatever. So I would also say no, though, I think overall. But boy, that card's annoying.
The unfair players are upset. That's so weird.
We're just going through
I mean, it's supposed to stop Storm, right? Like if you're like Storm or Spellslinger or something, but it just makes everyone else grind to a halt too, right? Like if you can somehow cast Archon and then win in like a turn or two, it's like reasonable.
Yeah.
But
I mean, I finally
usually no, right? You just like turn 3 Archon, and then we journal around for 5 turns, and then something happens.
Well,
right?
You got to remember that game took a long time because y'all just kept board wiping. At one point I had Containment Priest and Felia, and I blinked out all your stuff. and then eventually Felia was able to blink out this Archon, allowing me to cast multiple spells.
You broke
So-
symmetry. I like it.
It did draw a
Alright.
lot of heat, though. I don't remember who won that game, but did you win, Grim?
No,
I think we all lost.
Okay. Yeah.
admit
we
to it.
were all losers.
I remember the game took so long. I literally remember it's like literally like a filler episode from like turn 6 to 10 or something. Like literally nothing. Like it was just so slow, right? It's like
Yo,
imagine
board
turns
wipe
1 to
50
4 stretched out. No, we couldn't
Uh,
board wipe the Archon off somehow.
Yeah,
it took us a
'cause
while
it
to get
definitely
rid of
lived
it.
for a while.
Okay. The Tomer special. I know who put this one here. Thieves auction. 4 red sorcery. Set aside all cards in play. Starting with you, each player chooses one of the cards or chooses one of the cards set aside and puts it into play tapped under his or her control. Repeat this process until all those cards have been chosen. So basically, you just randomize who owns everything.
No,
Is
no.
that a Stax piece?
You kinda draft it.
Yeah, there you go.
Draft
You
it,
get
right?
to draft.
In the
Hey, everybody, we're playing
process of it.
Commander.
Wow.
In the middle of this game, let's play a round of limited. All right?
How is that not sick? That's so funny.
How is this not? This is literally the definition of stacks. Like Seth was like saying, we want to play Magic. We don't want the game to slow down to a crawl. Do you know how long it takes to resolve a stupid thieves auction? And then everybody has like bits and pieces of their deck, so their deck is not functioning because your mana got denied. You know, you have the wrong mana. You don't have your game pieces that your deck
You
relies
draft
on.
your mana back.
Yeah,
Tomer.
you-
You
I mean,
draft your mana
You
back.
should have drafted
Yeah, but what if your
your
opponents
mana.
are just screwing you over at the same time? Well, you have a game piece that is important. Well, I'm going to take the game piece. It's not useful to me, but it's better that you don't have it. And then everybody
Well,
just
then
is like,
you should
it's just like a
first pick it.
horrible. It's oh my god, yeah, but you can't first pick your entire board back. That's the problem with these
Well,
auctions. It's like
yeah, obviously not everything is a first pick, Elmer. You
it
know,
takes
cube
forever
draft.
to resolve.
It's cube drafting. Everything in your
Ah.
packs and cubes are first picks.
This is awful.
You should,
This
you
is
should
awful.
reference
It even
the
affects
LSV
the
article for pick
lands.
order, Tomer. That's what you need to do.
It even affects your lands. Like if you hate chokes and stuff like blood moons, imagine just like half your land base being just nonsense.
But
We
you
should have
get to draft him
priority
back.
drafted
You
them.
get to draft him back. I mean,
yeah,
Oh, you got to draft them back. Hopefully.
there's no way this card is stacks though, right? Like under what definition? Like I have the broadest definition of stacks out of anyone I know, and even I am like squinting at this and trying to figure out how I can justify calling it stacks.
No.
It's
I mean,
annoying, sure.
I
or
can
like,
see
should
how
you
Tomer
mention
could
it?
get
Sure,
there.
but like
So
I
it
would agree
slows
that
the
you
game
could
down a
mention
lot.
it.
And then you lose control of your stuff, right? But I think it's more similar to a board wipe that just takes a long time to resolve, right? So like, is like Nadu stacks? No, but it still takes forever to resolve anything, right? So Thieves Auction takes like a long time to resolve. And then effectively it's some kind of weird wrath, right? Like you just kind of lose your pieces. And then, but once the Thieves Auction resolves though, you don't have to worry about losing your pieces in the future, right?
Okay,
So it's a
draft it
one-time
again.
effect.
But
And
go,
you have
go
some
to the
control.
next
If
one.
you're really scared about your
Tomer.
mana, you draft back your mana first, right? If
Go-
you're really scared about your Cauldron piece,
First pick
draft your Cauldron
island.
piece back, right?
Yeah.
Because the chaos player, the person who's running thieves auction, they don't just run thieves auction. This is a full personality type for this person, right? So the next card they're going to be also be running in their deck is Scrambleverse. 8 mana, red sorcery. For each non-land permanent, choose a player at random. At random, you're not even drafting it. Then each player gains control of each permanent for which they were chosen. Untap those permanents. Can you imagine? There's 4 people at the table. Everybody has like, I don't know, 15 permanents on the board. Lands and enchantments, creatures, whatever, tokens, whatever. And then for each one, you have to be right. All right, I'm going to roll a d4. I'm going to roll a d4. All right, you get this piece. Okay, next one. You do that for 15 pieces for 4 people. Okay? That's 60 pieces that you have to roll separately for.
It's a lot of rolling.
And then it's all random, and you can't play the game because whatever you got is random, and half the things no longer work with your deck. It's awful. And people run the Thieves Auction, they run Scrambleverse, and like, oh, it's chaos, isn't this quirky? And it's just stacks for people who think they're quirky, but they're not. It's awful. I hate it. It slows the game down to a crawl, and then you lose half your cards at the end of the game when you try to shuffle up. You're like, oh, everybody ran black sleeves. Oops a daisy, the most popular sleeve type. Lost like my plateau or whatever.
I mean, I think it embodies the spirit of Stax so that you have to disclose it. No? Like, if you're running a Scrambleverse deck, wouldn't you
Yes.
ask your opponents, hey, are you cool with having your cards randomly mixed with everyone else? And then we got to find our cards back at the end of this game.
Yeah,
it's the same thing.
I don't think thieves auction I would have to disclose. I would disclose Scrambleverse. I would disclose Scrambleverse and all of that. Great Aurora. Oh no, Great Auroras.
You gotta disclose them both. I think I don't see them as stacks, but I do 100% agree. You gotta let people know, and they can opt in to the chaos experience if they want to. But yeah,
I'd rather be winter orbed every single game than have to deal with a Scrambleverse like once every 10 games.
Can I ask y'all a question?
Really
do you like
chaos.
fun? Like, do you at all like fun? Like it sounds like.
The thing is, I actually like a chaos game now and then. Like, I enjoy playing a chaos game, but like, I think I would want to know it was coming. Like, if someone came up to me and was like, hey, I want to play my chaos deck, I'd be like, cool, let's do it. But if we're just like playing a game and you randomly Scrambleverse, I'm gonna be like, come on, dude, come on.
What's wrong with the random Scrambleverse?
I have a friend that we both have a chaos deck. Have you ever played a double chaos deck game? That, like, a friend and I, we had that and we played it. And it was one of the most hilarious nonsense of all time. Tomer, you like board games. You literally like board. That's what a chaos deck feels like. It's the closest you can get to a board game.
It is not even in the same ballpark. I like.
Is it just the logistics?
I don't like taking...
Are you fine with chaos on Moto? That resolves instantly, and you don't lose your cards, right?
It's better.
Are you fine?
It's better on Moto.
It?
But like, we're talking
I
about
guess
like
Thieves Auction doesn't
Orb
resolve
stuff.
instantly, but Scrambleverse does.
We're talking about like things that slow us from playing the game. Like Choke, for example. Okay, my island zone on top. I'm mono blue. My island zone on top. I can still cast spells very slowly by playing islands and then hopefully getting rid of the thing. But it does slow down the game a lot. Same thing with Scrambleverse when like half of your lanes don't tap for the mana that you needed to. A lot of the permanents in your draw engines, for example, might have been taken by somebody else. If you're not your draw engine, then your mana engines got taken. You're slowed down. You're slowed down. Everybody is slowed down.
We got to segue into this then. Farewell. Is Farewell a Stax piece? 4 white, 6 mana sorcery. Choose one or more. Exile all artifacts. Exile all creatures, all enchantments, all graveyards. It kind of does everything Tomer listed there, right? It slows the game down. Every board wipe does that. But it permanently removes like engines, graveyards, things like that. Do we consider Farewell a Stax piece?
No. Are we really even going to propose that question, Richard? Because at this point now,
I don't know.
Everything that I don't
hinders
like
people. Like, I don't know. Is that
anything that interacts ends up being some degree of stacks, right? Even a
Wrath of God.
If I'm an elf ball deck,
can't be.
Yeah. If I have an elf ball deck and I get Wrath of God, you've effectively stacks me. You know, how hard is it going to be to rebuild that crap? It's going to take forever. But yes, I think there's acceptable amounts of interaction. I think Farewell is still acceptable. Scrambleverse, no. It's all spectrum.
I don't think Stax actually has anything to do with how long it takes. I don't know how he ended up on this like side quest of like how long does it take to resolve a card. Like that's another issue. So I don't think just slowing the game down makes something Stax. I think stopping your opponents from being able to do things makes a card stack. So I don't think Farewell really does that. I don't like that Farewell exists, but I'm pretty okay with one shots. Like you got to have some form of interaction or the game's gonna go bad in another direction, right? Where the fill deck just does the fill thing every time and wins with some big thing on turn 5. Like that's how every game of Commander would go. So I think that one shots like Farewell are perfectly fine, even though I think that one was probably like a little bit overtuned. Like they should have toned it down a bit, but it's fine to play.
It extends the game in terms of number of turns, right? But it's a one shot, right? You can rebuild after the Farewell. Although I don't know, man. Like if you're playing half mana rocks, you have Farewell. That's like half MLD for you, right? So but yeah,
we don't play.
It's
mana
not
rocks.
really stacks, right? If it somehow like happened every turn, then it stacks, right? Like if it somehow repeated itself,
spreading plague,
spreading plague.
Oh, come on. Oh, come
Who would
on.
run
You
that?
know it's
It's a
Stax.
5 mana. It's a 5 mana board wipe. Maybe. It's a situational board wipe.
All right, but we don't clear farewell, right? We're very far from that. We don't
Yeah,
actually.
no,
do we?
no.
Do we sit down and be like, "Hey guys, I have farewell."
I don't
Oh,
think you
God.
gotta. I don't think we
know.
gotten there yet.
You know what's funny? I think we are moving as Commander players into a world where I think I have to disclaim that I play spot removal. like
I just wanted to let you know my deck has a commander. It'll be in the command zone. I might cast it.
Commander. I do play interaction.
Like that, I have forests because my commander is green. I have to play forest.
Richard, I'm going to need you to disclose if you've got ramp in your deck so I can figure out which deck I'm going to play.
My deck is double sleeve, but you shuffle it's gonna be a little thicker than normal. I want you to know that. My deck is sleeved in Ultimate Guard sleeves. Check out ultimateguard.com. Okay. How about Linvala, Keeper of Silence? 2 white. Legendary creature, angel, 3/4 flying. Activated abilities of creatures your opponents control can't be activated.
It is asymmetrical, which does normally make for the most brutal Stax pieces, but it's only activated abilities only of creatures, and it's on a creature, so it can die. But pretty much any deck can deal with it. So it is Stax, but I don't think you got to give people a heads up on this one.
Yeah,
That's super fine. It's so narrow. And it's on a creature, like Seth said.
Yeah, this is super narrow. I don't even think I've ever been affected by this. Like I've seen it and just like, do I even have activated abilities that I care about?
Who even runs
Those
this?
poor mana dork
I mean, if
players.
you're an aristocrats player, you would care about this, right?
Yeah, aristocrats are like elves.
Wait.
Elves gets kind of wrecked.
Yeah,
elves.
Elves.
What would the I
What about
guess,
a
yeah.
Thrasios player, a Kinnan player, maybe?
This is probably better a CDH card than anything.
Yeah.
Then, like, because
Yes.
I see a lot of those there, but like in casual, like, dude, I don't care about any of these.
Yeah, I don't think people care in casual.
Yeah, it's narrow, so it gets away with it. And at worst, you can just use your creatures for their power and toughness line and like go to town. All right, opposition agent, 2 in a black, 3/2 flash. You control your opponents while they're searching. While an opponent is searching their library, they exile each card they find. You may play those cards for as long as they remain exiled, and you may spend mana as though it were mana of any color to cast them. So basically, you deny their search and do your own search, and then you can play those cards in the future. Is opposition agent a Stax piece?
Why is this bad?
Yes.
Like I would not disclose this. If anything, I think Wizards make more of these. Make more of these.
I'm actually in full agreement with Krim. First of all, I think it is Stax. It is Stax, but we need more of it. We need to punish. Tutoring effects even more. And I was a hater of opposition agent when it first came out.
Do it for
but I'm like,
Tomer's
now I need
baby
more.
hands. Do it for
Baby
Tomer's
hands.
baby hands.
If I can't shuffle my library, no one can.
I mean,
Literally, because it's too big.
It's definitely Stax, but I think I have been won over on this card too, being like the amount of green ramping we've seen lately has made me come around to feeling like hating on. That was my initial concern, was like, yeah, hate on the demonic tutor, that's fine, but what about the poor ramp players? But ramping is so strong now that like, yeah, they deserve it too. They deserve it too. So
remember when we had 11 mana and Richard had like 4?
Yeah, so I think it stacks, but it stacks something that we kind of need to be staxed.
I wish it gave lands a pass. So like if the searching ability came from a land, like a fetch land, evolving wilds, that you can still go through with it, but stop all other searching, right? Because there's the game where you have 2 fetch lands, there's an Ouphe agent on the battlefield, you're like, great, right? And you've effectively you basically got back to basics or something like this, right? So I think if you just fix that part, it's fine. But like most people, like what, you run 10 fetches max, like you still have 27 other lands in your deck, so you should still be able to get by with it. So it should be
28
fine.
other lands.
Yeah,
should be fine, right?
Yeah, and most people don't run 10 fetches. Like if you're 5 color, yes, but like if you're like 3 color, you're probably gonna run like 4 or 5.
All right. We have an
I got a
interesting
question
addition.
for y'all.
Oh, go ahead.
Well, do you know that you all play Stax probably even more often than not than I do? Like I'm talking about all, like everyone here. You, Tomer, like Seth, Richard,
Oh.
especially Richard and Seth
Oh
here.
boy, what do you
What
consider
card is
Stax, Grim?
Nissa.
What is this?
You all
Crib?
play propaganda. You know that's Stax, right? In Ghostly Prisons.
It
True.
is. It is.
I mean,
that's actually
it
stats.
is.
And you play that all the time. So
Yes.
I think the main thing to take away here is that
Stax is
No,
not like
you don't
a
have to
bad
pay
thing.
unless you attack me, though. So just don't attack me, and then I'm not
attack someone
Yeah.
staxing
else.
you.
So I
You're
cannot.
staxing yourself, if anything. You're staxing yourself by being
Okay.
mean to me.
Okay.
believe it or not, check through your decks. You all, before you get this negative outlook on what Stax is, by the way, you all play it to varying degrees. And propaganda in Ghostly Prisons is definitely one of them, right? So I'm just letting you know that. So Stax is way more common than you think. And what do you think of those cards? Because do you think we have to disclose those?
No,
Kurt was
I don't
right.
think we have
Kurt
to.
was
You
right.
are right that they are like. I guess they are kind of Stax, but they're pretty.
Like we never hit
they're
each other.
Stax.
We never hit each other when that hits, right? Because essentially you have removed combat with Richard when Richard has propaganda.
True.
But you
If
can
you're a
still
combat deck,
execute your game plan by attacking other people, right? It's not like
Yeah.
you don't get to draw cards, you don't get to cast your spells. Like you just have to like go in like is goad stacks because it's like controlling who you have to attack. I would say no. So I think like
I
it
would
is
say yes. Because you are removing what you have said is Stax feels like you are removing an element of the game, right? From that you cannot perform. And yeah, maybe I can hit Tomer, but I don't want to hit Tomer because Richard's the threat.
but
So it is
What?
Well, okay,
What?
is playing a blocker stacks then? Because
No.
Right, you can't attack me
that is
because
Pilgrim's
I'm
Eye,
kidding.
the ultimate Stax
Combo or synergy all over again.
but like a blocker is a normal part of the game. You can block. That is a normal feature
Propaganda
of the
is a
game.
normal-
no, but
The
propaganda.
thing is, you can hit other
removes-
people, right? So, like, yes, it's not exactly what you want to do, but you can keep playing creatures, right? So for normal decks that don't actually need to attack, you can keep playing creatures, drawing cards, whatever. But let's say you're actually like an attack matters deck. Let's say you have Toski and you rely on Toski to do something. You can hit the person that doesn't have propaganda, right? Whereas
I am
like
an aggro deck.
a rest in peace or something. Like you can't be like, wow, I'll just go. I'll use someone else's graveyard. You know, like you can't really do that, right? Like you can't redirect it. Whereas you can still work around propaganda, and plus you can just pay mana for propaganda, right? Like,
Yeah,
can
but
actually
you are
just pay
now
mana.
denying me the same. You were denying me mana because the mana I was going to use
Yes.
to do more fun things, right, has now been stripped from me in order to do a
Yes.
basic game action that would otherwise be removed, right?
I will say, okay. I will grant for the sake of our argument that they are stacks, but I would say they're like opposition agent stacks where they're like stacks that has a positive effect on the game. So sure, they I think you're technically right that they're stacks, but
Wait, why does it have a positive effect on the game? Why is
Seth gets to
propaganda a
live in
positive
journal.
effect?
because I want to live, yeah. Living's great.
It's menace stacks, Crib.
But I would okay, so here's why
It's a boss.
Ruin my ability.
Here's why it
It's
really-
unblockable stacks. I'm trying to block, and you're removing a key game action
No.
by being unblockable for your Rogue's Passage.
Here's why it has a positive effect is because it still lets you have your creatures to play the game with. Because if you're not going to play Ghostly Prison, what are you going to play? A Farewell, a Damnation? Like something that just removes all those creatures. I think a huge percentage of Commander players would rather have their board in their things and just not be able to attack someone than not have their board altogether. So I think that's why it leads to a positive effect.
So you
because
Teferi's Prode every turn.
pay the two.
You
got a
as the
choice.
propaganda player have Teferi's Prode every turn. Because if you look at how our games go, anybody that plays any of those effects, we never hit them. We never hit. So essentially combat is removed for that person.
Play more removal for enchantments.
Look, hey, I
Get good.
fully agree that you should
But
play.
no one would fire off the
okay.
removal, right? Because they
Now
don't need to
we're
until they want to kill
good.
that person.
I think it's very light because, like Seth said, the attackers are still there. So as soon as you find an answer to that propaganda, you can start hitting. It's much better than losing all
Humility.
your creatures.
Your creatures are still there.
Oh
True.
no, Crib's got us.
Technically
True.
true.
Humility, your
True.
creatures are still
Humility's
there.
fine. Humility's fine.
Yeah,
Why isn't it-
okay,
why is it
okay.
not
So
in
we
the-
agree that
No.
humility is fine.
No.
What?
No.
How did we
Fine.
end up here?
Yo,
Humility,
YouTube, can you clip this real quick for me? There are no
Humility's
nefarious
not fine.
purposes.
Finally, me
I
and
just
Chris
want Tomer.
agree on something.
Yeah, I just want this clip where Tomer said it.
I guarantee you, Tomer's not fine with humility if he's not fine with like a scramble verse.
Oh, I'd much rather be humility than Scrambleverse. You can put that on the record.
Because the
Let
game will
record
never
show.
end now because everyone has
The record
won
will
one.
show. I will take 2 humilities over any Scrambleverse any day. I hate it. I hate it all. I hate it all.
Humility's not fine, right? I mean, but
No.
he's kind of right though, right? Like, okay, so it grinds the game to a halt, but your creatures are still there. So once you remove the humility, the game can resume. So is
Yeah.
that
It's true.
is kind of soft,
not lying.
right?
It's not lying.
Like
It kinda-
he has a point.
It kind of has the Elesh Norn problem we talked about before, where like your interaction might be getting shut down by the humility. If you're playing Reclamation Sage or like Night of, like if that's the way you're gonna try to interact with it, like some decks or Harmonic Sliver, like you can't interact with it because you don't have any abilities anymore. So I think
Isn't
it's
that
got
a
a little
get
bit of
good situation with deck building? There's
Play it
no
like
way
this,
you
yes.
a 5-color deck ran only ETBs as an answer.
How did we get here?
I agree though.
I mean, I think okay. I know why it's not good because it messes with one of the fundamental aspects of Magic. And we talked about card draw, we talked about ramp, but one of them is like creatures with power and toughness, right? Like that makes everything a 1/1, and therefore you can't like end the game, right? Like you need to
that
actually
can't
break the
block.
symmetry
That's
because
the same as propaganda. My creatures are essentially
but you can progress
irrelevant.
the game against other people. Like you can still kill Seth or something while I have propaganda up, and the game can still end in a timely manner. Whereas like humility comes down,
No,
guaranteed
all-
the game extends until someone removes the humility, right? Like
All
it
that
definitely goes
does
longer.
is that it means that I do the work for you, right? I kill Seth, I kill Tomer while you prosper, right? But
yeah,
if it comes to clear threat assessment, I cannot attack you.
No, but then you just
right?
remove it, then, right? Like what?
I mean,
If
that-
you actually
okay,
cared
yes.
about it.
Sure. Removal is the wild card here. It'll work on anything. But the main thing here is, should we then not disclose that we are playing Ghostly Prison and propaganda? Like example,
but
I
like
would
take
say
the
I'm playing a
grossest
goat
Stax
deck.
piece you can, and if someone can pay like 2 mana to turn it off, it suddenly becomes like not so bad, right? Like, you know, like take
Each
rest. Actually, rest
creature-
piece happens all the time, but like Notion Thief. What if you pay 2 mana to disable Notion Thief for a turn, right? Like that, it suddenly becomes like not that oppressive, right?
But then it's taking away your mana. You are now getting taxed and staxed, right? Like this is the
All right,
same
Grim, I'll
thing.
clear with you my propaganda.
Also, like-
MCA.
Yeah,
I
doesn't
need you all to
affect any
clear
decks
with
that-
me if you're gonna play that.
It doesn't
You
affect
don't.
any decks that don't care about attacking every single person, right? Like if I'm aristocrats, it's like, oh, you played propaganda, cool. I'm gonna keep draining you, sacrificing my creatures, doing whatever. So it's like
I'm
narrow.
not a graveyard
like it's
deck.
very good
I don't
against.
care about rest in peace.
Yeah.
Yeah, look.
I mean,
I'm
Crim
saying-
has like choke only affects one person. It's not a Stax. I mean, it is.
But you could just
I
pay
can
2
see where
for
Crim is
it.
going with this, but it's
I
so
can
soft.
too.
though.
But also, you
Yeah.
get to just also still draw cards, cast your spells, and everything. Your creatures still work. You just can't attack that one person.
Yeah, are we not understanding that me hitting that
It's
one person with the
right.
propaganda is an
I mean, I
element
think
of-
if propaganda said no creatures can attack, I think we would consider it like a very bad
You
Stax
get
piece,
glacial
right?
cap.
Because then if
Sure,
you're
that's
like an
just moat.
attack triggers deck, like you literally can't get anything done.
Yeah,
Right,
then
but
it literally
because
is moat. And moats, we don't
But
play
then it's just
moat,
like
right? Moat's
weird
not a-
goad at
Moat,
this point,
yeah.
right? Yeah. Oh, moat is moat acceptable?
No.
Ah.
Well, I mean, no.
I think it depends. Moat itself, probably not, but Magus the Moat is fine because you can still fly and kill it.
Yeah.
It's a
You can
creature.
play over the real moat too, but yeah.
Yeah, I guess that's fair. But it's a lot harder to kill the
Easier
enchant.
to deal with.
That's
than
true.
Axel, for sure.
But I think that's the difference, right? Like moat to Ghostly Prison is where you get to see like how the strength of a Stax piece matters. Kind of like Roiling Vortex. Like there's ways that could be worded that would make it a problem, but it's just not worded, or Collector Roof worded in a way that makes it problematic because it's not strong enough.
I mean, where I'm going with this though is you don't actually have to disclose to me about propaganda. The only thing is, I'm just letting y'all know that even you at home watching or listening right now, you also play Stax.
Yo, I Stax every single time I
mean,
cast
if
the
you
board
play
wipe.
3 rats in
Is
a
a
game,
fog
is that
Stax?
Stax? That's
Yeah.
almost
A
the
fog
same
might
as
be
spreading
Oh,
things.
God.
Fog is
Now
a
we're-
sign. It's fog stacks. If I cast fog and I'm trying to deal damage and you prevent that damage, are you not staxing
You
me, bro?
staxed me. You staxed me, Richard.
I would not be shocked if Seth bought that out.
I have combat damage
Only
triggers
if-
and you're staxing
Only
me.
if Krim is the one casting the fog. Otherwise, we're good.
Okay. I think we've lost all credibility in the last 5 minutes.
You're all
Let us
filthy
know what you
Stax
think.
players. Even us included.
Let us know what you
Everything
think
was
about
Stax,
Stax. We had some interesting ones. Humility apparently half the crew's on board with here.
Over
Collector
scramble
Ouphe.
for
I think
any
Collector
dime.
Ouphe is a big controversial one.
Yeah.
Thieves Auction Scrambleverse. Tomer believers. We don't like the chaos.
I bet Notion
choke.
Thief's controversial too. Like we're kind of all cool with it, but I think like other people might not be.
I think it's because of wheels, though. So fair Notion Thief, or is it controversial? That's what I want to know about. Because a lot of people are just scared of Notion Thief wheel, which they rightfully should be in a casual setting. And then Rest in Peace. I think Rest in Peace. I'm curious what people will think about Rest in Peace. Is that acceptable? Do graveyard players deserve to play the game or not?
Answer is no.
It's really bad for them because they literally have like Feed the Swarm and like that's it to get rid of this. So I'm curious where we line up on Rest in Peace and whether we should disclose it or not. So yeah, let us know what you think in the comments, and then we'll see you all back here next week.